everybody. I'm just going to pour my water first because that is just the way it rolls right now. And I'm going to try not to break the glass. Normally, I do a G&T when I'm doing a presentation, but that was not on offer. Because normally it's a tech event, and you can't roll like that. Like, not wearing heels. But hello, everybody, and thank you very much for coming. And one of the things I thought was really weird is that I get really freaked out when I walked into this event because there's so many people, and especially after, we've been in this sort of pandemic state, and now we're in the endemic. And then I thought about it, and I realized, wait a minute, 2 weeks ago, I went to a Women in Tech awards gala, and it was 600 people. And it was 600 people in a closed room. It was a gala, so it wasn't spread out like this. And I thought, why am I so freaked out today? And think back to that, and I was hyperventilating at that event with 600 people. Then I realized approximately 90% of the people there were women. And given that women are more risk averse than men, sorry, men and those that identify as that in the audience, that it was likely that most of the women there had tested. So I was like, oh, I'm good. And then it really got me thinking about when you have people in the education space that are going to be going from an environment that they have planned for themselves at home. They've made that space theirs while they're learning. You have educators that are at home and they have made that space for how they teach. They are in their comfortable environment. They have the things that they want in the room, the things that they need. And even when you're living in an environment where it's not optimal, maybe you share your flat or you share a room or shared house, either way, it's still a space that you have carved out. Even if it's just a chair and a table, you've carved that out for you. Whereas when you're now moving back into the education space of being in a classroom or being in an office, that's a space that is designed for anybody. You've had to make it your own. You've had to design that space for you, but it's still ultimately not yours because the only thing you can do to those walls is put pictures on them sometimes. And I'm coming from an intelligence background. I could never put pictures on the wall. I was never allowed to have anything personal in a room. But when you go into an office space, you can have a minimal amount of things that are personal. So I was thinking about that and how we in technology are actually going to be able to utilize that when we're going forward with how we teach, what we teach, where we teach, why we're teaching in that way. Sorry, sip of water. And it really comes down to, I think, a few things that we really first have to granularly make sure are there. Comes down to one, mindset. And this is a topic and an area that I have been talking about forever. Back in 1999, when I first started out as an intelligence analyst, it was basically analyzing the analyst, the mindset of the person doing the work. So as educators, it comes down to your mindset before you even get into that classroom space, before you're actually interacting with parents, with teachers, with your colleagues, with students, whoever. Comes down to one, your mindset before you can even adopt using technology. Because if you don't have an open mindset and at least a little bit of skepticism, you have to have that. If you don't have a sort of a mindset to adopt something, it's not going to work. You need to have the right mindset going into it. So that's just my beginning thoughts. And that brings me on to the next area. Mindset is always it. So while you're here, anything I say you disagree with, you're allowed to just pop up your hand and say, ask a question. I am all for it because I know that I did these slides. I've been watching stuff from South by Southwest. I've seen presentations in here. I have been to booths. I've been looking at technology. I have not gotten to play with anything because there's a bunch of kids in here stealing that time. I'm a little disappointed about that. I didn't want to push people out of the way, but there was a couple booths I wanted to play with. But really, feel free at any time because I don't think anything that I'm going to say you don't already know in some way, shape, or form. You've not seen it, you've not heard it. Okay? Are we good with that? Nodding of the heads? Okay. All right, I'm liking that. Okay, so first things first. We all know that there's the online safety bill and the online harms bill that just came about. So when we're thinking about mindset, the first thing that I'm looking at when I'm looking at all of the platforms that are being developed, every tech platform we have out there, everything, the first thing that I'm asking people is, what are the safety protocols you have in place? It doesn't matter if you're Microsoft, if you're Facebook, or Meta, or if you are, trying to think, Riot Games. It doesn't matter. Everybody's thinking about online harms in the effect of it being a gaming platform or a social media platform. But actually, it needs to be anything where there is interaction between a person in the physical world and interacting with something in the online world. So basically, everything that you use as an educator, you should be making sure that when you're using a platform, there is an area on there that is laying out the safety protocols. A lot of ed tech does, but very few of it does now, even when you are using that in your classroom and it is now interacting with students on the web remotely. That needs to happen. That's the first thing. So when you're finding these software platforms, you're looking at websites, you're looking at the people that are coming in selling these platforms to you, ask that question. Hey, what are the safety protocols you have in place? The human experience that you have in the real world, I hate that IRL, but in the physical world, is the same experience you should have afforded those protections when you are using something online. And that's really what the online harms bill is about. Some other stuff got weighed in there, but we won't go into that. But that's really the base, core, fundamental. The human experience should be protected when you are not in the physical space. And that's a very big area that is gray right now because we have the metaverse that's coming about, and that's laying on top of what we are doing in the physical world, interacting with what's in the online world. So that's a gray space. But I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. So a lot of people have been thinking about it as being just social media and hate crimes online for hate speech. It's in everything. Every piece of software needs to have a protocol like this in order to protect those users and those that are also teaching with it. Another area that I always think about is your body language, which is really funny because a lot of people don't really think that body language is that important. So when you're in your little Zoom box or your, I call them Zoom box, Brady Bunch box, whatever you want to call it, but when you're in that space, there's a lot of body language you're missing. And right now, when we're moving back into the real world, physical space, and a lot of classes are doing hybrid, there is a body language that you are going to have, that your students are going to have. Like I said, it really is about that mindset, what you're projecting to your students and what they're projecting to you. And that is something that people are not really paying attention to. The eyes, the hand gestures, you learn a lot. And you need to be aware of that. And a friend of mine came up with this. He's a body language coach. Not my coach, unfortunately, because nobody can control my body language. It's a little bit out there. But he came up with this card set. I actually have it in my bag. But in the cards, and I was supposed to show you this little 20-second video where you can actually identify some of the actions that people have. So I think it's a really great exercise for educators to actually learn some of these codes so you can really, essentially, be able to tell what your students are meaning, how you are greeting people, being more aware. It's not tech per se, but it is the human side. And I think a lot of what's happening right now is that we are so very heavily focused on algorithms, on AI, on VR, XR, whatever, that we are forgetting the human aspects of the tech. It cannot be driven if the people that are building it are not of the right mindset. As I said, it all comes back to mindset. It all comes back to how you're using it, where you're using it, why you're using it, and how you're using it. And if you're not doing any one of those things right, it doesn't matter what software you have. Doesn't make a bit of difference. So, immersion learning experience. We all know right now, everybody's talking about being plugged in, being in the matrix, there might be a plug in your head, it could be a BCI, brain computing interface. But it's one of the areas that are very, very important. I'm got really dry mouth. One of the things that happened is that my embedded videos. So this is a website for the VR Museum of Fine Art. And what's really, really, really great about this is that with immersive technology, you can have a VR headset. Unfortunately, and I always point this out, the one bad thing about us moving more into the technology area when we are doing education is the fact that people that are economically challenged, socioeconomically challenged, do not always have the opportunity to interact in this way. They're not able to do this when they're at home. They're not able to do immersive technology, and maybe their school may not even have that funding. So there are a lot of really interesting ways that you can learn, but we also have to be very aware of the challenges that are in adopting these methods. And this is a VR museum. You need to have a VR headset, so an Oculus or whatever, and you get to go to that website and check out the art. What's really great is we know the cost of travel is exorbitant. School trips, because of COVID, are not really happening anymore. So it's a great experience for students learning. And you can take virtual field trips. I think there's a video in that one, maybe. I think this one just goes to the page of Google, where I'm pretty sure if you went to the Google booth, you would see that, where you can go to the Google website, you can take a field trip, you can go to anyone, pick a subject, and it will let you explore the areas. What's really absolutely wonderful about this, because it is Google, it's like the world is your oyster. Not that they're the only one, but theirs is particularly good because you can go under the waves. BBC has an immersion page also where you can actually explore and do World War II fighter pilot bombers. And they've actually put the software in and all the video in where you can actually act like you're in a bomber and a fighter plane. Not really sure that's the best thing you want to be teaching kids, if you are teaching young adults or young children, but there you go. Let's get to the next slide. VR, AR, MR. Okay. I'm going to just check my notes because there was something I wanted to say here. I'm not sure if I put it in there. I don't think I did. Adaptive learning. I know everybody knows what adaptive learning is, right? I got one or two faces I like. Okay, so one of the advantages of adaptive learning is that you are able to tailor that so it is really tailored towards an individual's method of learning. But you have personalized learning. So you have adaptive and personalized. They're similar, but they're very different. Personalized learning is very much the time, the space, everything is 100% towards that person. With adaptive, unfortunately, I think the negatives of adaptive is that AI is actually learning along the way, and it's not perfect. I mean, nothing's perfect, but when you have an algorithm, my personal opinion is that while it's great in what it's doing, it's not exactly perfect, and it still has room for growth. So I don't think you should be reliant 100% on adaptive learning. But VR, AR, we all know how those are interactive and how they're really great. I'm just going to try and get to the best parts. Video, I think, in there. Healthcare. I can't find that. Oh, the manner of discovery. So right now, one of the things that is happening is that when it comes to, is anybody in the medical, health, teaching? Anybody? No? Actually, I'm going to ask, what areas are people in? Just straight education? Anybody in science? Math? Geez, people, history. Oh, one historian. Excellent. Okay. An example. So historically, when people were learning about the body, they would actually have to have cadavers. So you'd actually have to have a cadaver, pull it apart, use that. And so now we've all seen the software technology that's being used is that you can have VR and you can have glasses on. You could be out there, you can be feeling it. You can have AR, where you're actually going to be sort of being able to construct. And then you have mixed reality, where we're going for the solutions where you are actually able to build with 3D printing also. And what is absolutely fascinating with this is that we have seen 3D printing with ears, we've seen pig's hearts, we've seen a heart recently, we've seen a foot, a toe, I believe, and 3D printing. What's really important about this for the educational piece is that as an educator now, when you are teaching your students, it's not just teaching from a book. We've all seen this. We've all seen the way that you can now 3D print. But because people are now coming back into the rooms, into the classrooms, it's not just a matter of 3D printing your equipment or your heart or whatever instrument you need. It really is more about being able to teach how the technology is doing that. Not just building the heart, but how you built the heart for the technology. And that's what's, I think, really interesting. 5G, I'm just flashing through some stuff because there's stuff I really want to get to. Automation. I gotta find my page. Okay, so we have AR, VR, MR, AI, automation, adaptive learning. So we have asynchronous learning, or these are just some of the ways that educators will be needing right now. So I'm just going to, micro-learning. Are you doing micro-learning? It's like, I get like, micro learning, live streaming. These are just some of the ways that are different to what people are doing right now. So live streaming, some awareness. I'm trying to get through all these slides. Some awareness. Okay, with robotics, security awareness, because that's my background, AI awareness. One, we need to have constant training of educators and students. What you can and cannot do. As I said, safety tech. But in addition to that, there's the security protocols. Password cracking. These are some of the areas and issues that are highlighted for people in the next phase of technology use in the classroom. Polymorphic malware. Right now we have malware that just, you log in, it might trick you into doing something. But now polymorphic malware is malware that changes. It constantly adapts. So if you are entering a number and it recognizes that you've entered 3 digits the same as something else that's on your computer, it will change. It will adapt and change, so it hides itself within your software. This is something that needs to be very much heightened, because right now we have educators that are teaching at home. This is probably the biggest hole, not only in the education sector, but in the corporate environment that happened during the pandemic, which is really how a lot of places got hacked. This is really important for you to understand and to know going forward if you're teaching your students in a hybrid situation and you yourself are using software, especially if it's software that you're using on a personal computer or on a home network. Deep fake technology. This is going to be the big one for those that are teaching, because right now I know there are kids that actually are learning how to do deep fake photographs. They're doing deep fake videos on TikTok, and they're learning how to do that via YouTube. And so this is kind of big when it comes down to the negative aspects of education, like cheating and kids, really kids, young adults, even college students, doing deep fake technology in order to bypass security protocols to take exams, which is why I say constant training. But when we get down to the metaverse, well, I have a problem. One, everybody thinks that right now the metaverse is all about nice artwork, using it for fun things, and it is. However, as we move more and more into that area of Web 3.0, we are going to be needing to use the metaverse for teaching. And that's where it has a potential use for education in these areas. There's integrated learning, and that is because in the real world, you have us physically here, and in the online world, you have online. Well, in the metaverse is basically what sits on top of all things. She's giving me this little sign back there. I'm going to ignore it. We have the metaverse, which is sitting on top of everything. And that's where the biggest learning opportunities occur, because you have students that are able to learn in the physical space, human experience in the physical space, and the human experience online. And so you have those joined up together. You're able to engage communities more because you have more international cooperation. This works for those that are socioeconomically advantaged in that way. That's the one thing you really need to continually be aware of, because responsible usage. Somebody who is financially wealthy has a different mentality on how they are going to be using this space in order to learn, and somebody who isn't is going to be having a different experience. And those are, as I said, it's really about the mindset of how you're doing this. And the freedom to create and to share. Everybody got that slide, right? Take the picture. I just like that picture because I took it. But basically, as I always say, it's not about, technology is not coming to get us. It's not crawling out of there. It's really about collaboration. And this is one of those points I always like to make. Really, the black vase is the organic. The organic I consider the human. The plastic, that really is about the metaverse. That's the future as we know it, because that is everything in the world is going to be considered and put into the metaverse. And the paper is the current online Web 2.0, because it is a combination of the human, but also a little bit of the online world. And paper is really a combination of some chemicals and trees. And that's the way I look at it. That's the analogy that I always make for people, is that there are three areas that really we have to look at when it comes down to technology in the future. So, does everybody get it? Those are 7 areas. Did I put 7 down there? Those are the areas that you really need to be looking at. There's a lot of information out there, and it's way more than you can condense into 15, 20 minutes. I could have, but I just wanted to just give you a little flavor of some of the things that I was thinking about. But these areas are really where you need to look. I really, for all intents and purposes, think that asynchronous learning and micro-learning, as well as simulations, are probably the most interactive ways that you can go forward. Simulations, because as we come into this world of the metaverse and people are wanting to really interact with each other in the non-physical space, simulations are going to be the way that people want to learn. Mainly because wargaming is really good, red teaming, Sim City sort of thing. I'm trying to think of games, because that clock is beeping at me. But really, I cannot stress enough that I would say if there's any one slide that you do make sure you get a copy, take a picture of, it is this one. These are the areas that are going to be the fastest growing, that are the most important. And the one thing I really want to say is mindset. That is really what is most important here. Cannot stress. We're at a tech event, but it comes down to the human experience. And if going forward, you just want to use technology and you don't want to at any time consider what it is to be human in any space that you're using something, it's going to be lost. Your students will not appreciate it, they will not understand, and you will not be teaching anybody that's going to be paying attention. You have to first basically be having that human experience and make that relevant for the students going forward, and also for yourself and your peers. I'm over time. And that's just the picture that I always put in all my slides, because as I always say, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to curse, but I'm going to, because everything I told you is really common sense. No shit. Doesn't matter what somebody designs within tech. It's all there already. There is nothing new in this world. Everything is just recycled in a better way. So think about that. And that's me, and that's my QR for LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me or whatever, feel free to take a picture. And that's it. And I guess I'm done, and I'm over time, and I'm getting a little like, shut up, Suki. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.